Hello, these are this season's tulips, and it's July, so it's time to lift them and store them until I replant them at the end of the year. And in this video I'm going to share with you a year in the life cycle of a tulip, from buying the bulb, planting them, lifting them, storing them, and then replanting them. So in this video I will go through the process of lifting them and storing them, but whilst I'm doing that I'll also talk through how I've looked after these tulips since I bought them at the back end of summer last year. The first thing I'm going to do is save the gravel off the top. I put a gravel mulch on top of the tulips. It was to suppress weeds and help retain moisture. And I was actually quite worried at first whether it was too heavy for the tulips to come through, but I needn't have worried because they had absolutely no problem pushing through that gravel mulch, and it did do a great job of suppressing the weeds, so I can reuse that. So the first thing we're going to do is just gently tip off the gravel off the top of each of these pots into this pail, and I'll reuse that as a mulch. There's several benefits to having a mulch on top of a plant pot. It adds a bit of ballast to the bulbs, it stops the birds from digging them up, it suppresses weeds, and it looks great, and also it helps retain moisture when you water them. And I always leave a gap at the top of my pots so that I can water things without the water running off. So whilst I'm taking this gravel mulch off the top of these rather heavy pots, I bought my tulip bulbs in I think September last year from Thompson and Morgan, and you buy them at the back end of the summer so that you can plant them in the autumn. So strictly speaking, you're supposed to plant your tulips in October or November, and then they should sit in the ground or in a pot, as I've done, all winter in the cold, in dormancy, until the springtime, which is when they will start to emerge. Now you plant a tulip bulb 3 or 4 times the depth of the bulb, and then of course you can cover it in a mulch like I did. And as I've already said, you let them sit either in the ground or in the pot all winter time. Now, so that the bulb doesn't rot, you can put well-drained soil at the bottom of the hole where you plant them. Some people I know sit the bulb on a bed of grit so that they're not sat in water all winter. And you don't water them during the winter time because they're actually in dormancy, so you can afford to just put them outside in the garden, in the ground or in pots, and just let them sit there in the weather. But come springtime, when it warms up, the growth will start to take place under the ground, so it won't do them any harm whatsoever. Start watering them and feeding them in the spring before they've started to show themselves, and that way the bulb will benefit from some extra food. So there's all my gravel mulch saved and retrieved, and the next thing I'm going to do is tip these out and clean them off, and the compost that's in here will be largely spent. There won't be much nutrients left in it, but it will go into a raised bed. So out they come, and as you can see at the bottom of my pots I have crocks. Crocks are a good idea because you cover the hole in the bottom of your pot with a crock. It allows the water to go through, but it stops the soil from going through. And as you can see, in addition to crocks, I've also put a layer of gravel at the bottom, so I'll retrieve that as well. That can go in here and be used again. Now the process will involve very carefully separating these bulbs off. Now they will start to grow in the springtime when the weather warms up, and you'll see tiny little green shoots popping out of the surface of the soil or through the gravel in my case, and they will grow and produce lovely blooms. And what you do at the end of the flowering period is you deadhead them, but you don't dig them up then. You let them sit in the pots for about 6 to 8 weeks, and they will die back as these have. So these were the tulip stems. They had flowers on the top, and there was green leaves And when I deadheaded them, they were still surrounded by green leaves, and those green leaves I've allowed to die back. And whilst they've been dying back, they've been feeding these bulbs. So these bulbs have been sitting there in the soil, absorbing nutrients from the leaves, which have subsequently died back. So now we have some bulbs, very similar to the bulbs I bought, but with quite a lot more root on them. And we can gently persuade that off. And then I'm going to store these in a basket. I'm using a basket because it lets air through. I want these to dry out. And that's one of the reasons I'm taking them up, because if I was to leave them in the soil here, there would be a risk that they might rot. So that I can gently tease away at the soil and bring these bulbs out. And you can still see life in there. And I'm going to do that now in every single one of these bulbs, just gently putting them in the bottom of there, taking off any excess soil and any excess root, and store them in this basket. Now you can also use a tray or a mesh sack and to store them, and we'll break off that greenery there, that's no longer doing any good, and we'll just put these lovely big fat worm there. Look at that, isn't that wonderful? You can go over there in the undergrowth, and we'll just remove any excess roots, and we'll gently put them in the bottom of this basket. So I'll do that now with all of these, and then that will end up being full of bulbs, but because it's a basket, it will let the air through and it will stop them from rotting, and they will dry out over the next 2 or 3 months. Now you actually plant tulips in the autumn time. That's what they recommend. They recommend that you plant your tulips October, November, December. However, I didn't plant mine until January this year because I forgot I'd had them. I bought them and put them in the shed, and then subsequently forgot I had them, and I was actually a bit concerned that they might not give a good show, but I didn't need to be concerned because they actually did really well, despite the fact that I didn't plant them until January. And I did a quick video on that. I'll put a link to it at the end of this video, and the video was titled "Planting Tulips, is January too late?" because I was concerned that I'd left it too late to plant mine. And I got several people commenting that they planted theirs in March and still got a very good display. Now that one bulb there has made 2 separate bulbs, so I'll probably be able to very gently tease those apart when they've dried out a little bit. So I'm now going to sift through all this soil here and retrieve as many bulbs as I possibly can, put them in this basket to dry out. They can sit in that basket in a cool, dark place, which in my case is a shelf at the back of my garage, and where rodents can't get them, because you don't want mice to get in there and nibble away at them. And I'll just let them dry out. And then this year I'm going to remember to plant mine in November or December. I'm not going to leave it till January this year. So there we have it, lifting the tulips. I'll go ahead and do the rest of these. I'll have a lovely big basket. It looks like I'll have more than I started with because they've doubled in size, and I'll be able to divide them, and then I'll plant them again at the end of the year. Hope you found that interesting, entertaining and useful and informative, and good luck with your tulips. If you've got any comments or additional information that you'd like to add to this video, please do put it in the comments box below, and hopefully we'll benefit from a lovely display of tulips again next year. Bye for now.